Welcome to A Different Light, the infrared photo blog. I'm Dan Wiedbrock. Today we're going to talk about how to create a blue sky using lab color and curves. So let's get started. So here we are in Photoshop, and you might wonder why in blazes I'd ever want to work in lab color. And this is a diagram that's going to try to illustrate that. When working in an extreme environment, especially infrared photography, what happens is that the camera is working hard to try to render an invisible light source into a visible spectrum. And what happens is that if you have your camera set to standard RGB, it tries to put everything within this small triangle. All of my cameras are set for Adobe RGB, so I now have a bigger palette to work with, a bigger palette of colors. And with a bigger palette of colors, I have more control, more fine control in color selection and manipulation. By taking my Adobe RGB color palette and changing it to lab color, I have an even larger palette to work with. This is important because when I'm post-processing, things that are near the edge may pop out and no longer that information may not be available to me anymore. So what I try to do is that I try to do a lot of my initial processing in lab color. So with that, let's move on. So this is a photo of a tree at the lake. It's never going to win me any awards, but it's good for instructional purposes. And one of the looks that people like with infrared color photography is the blue sky effect. So to do that, I have to change the sepia looking sky to a blue sky. And the normal way to do that is with the channel mixer. And I tend to use the adjustment layer here for channel mixer, swapping the red and blue channels. The difficulty I have with the channel mixer is it's a pretty crude instrument. And often what happens for sidewalks, driveways, things with concrete, I end up with a lot of blues and grays stuck in there that really don't help me much, and they're hard to get rid of, even when I use the hue and saturation sliders. So I tend to use now lab color channel swaps, and I'll show you why. There are two ways that I know of to do this, the easy way and a little more complex way. And naturally, I tend to use the more complex way, but the first one I'm going to show you is the easy way. So to do this, what we do is we take our image and we say Image, Mode, Lab Color. So that's the way that works. We come down here, we open up the Channels tab. We see here that the Lab Color has 3 channels instead of RGB. We have lightness, we have A, and we have the B channel. The A channel takes care of the greens and magentas. The B channel takes care of the blues and yellows. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the A channel, and I click on this eyeball here for lab to make sure all the eyeballs are lit up. The easiest thing now is that we come back, Image, Adjustments, Invert. Bang. It's done. So some people like the green sky look, and you can then start your manipulation right here. But we're going to go on to the blue sky look. So what I'm going to do is change it to the B channel, again, Image, Adjustments, Invert. And I now have an image that has a channel swap done on it that only took me a couple of seconds. And then you can move on from here. If you like working in the RGB space, you can then close this up like this. You can save it or change the mode back to RGB. I'm going to continue, since I tend to continue on from here, what I end up doing is actually working in the curves function in the lab color space. And to do that, what I'm going to do is show you how that works. Again, this is the same image. I'm going to go Image, Adjustment, or Mode, Lab Color. And normally what I would do is choose the layer mask here and work there because I have more blending options But in this case, for instructional purposes, what I'm going to do is say image adjustments curves, because the box is bigger and you'll be able to see it on your screen better. So again, with lab color, we have 3 channels. We have the lightness, we have the A channel, and the B channel. So choosing the A channel, all I really have to do is drag and drop. I grab the bottom of the curve, I drag it to the top, and then I drag the top of this curve and I drag it to the bottom. And I now have the A channel swapped. So if I choose the B channel, where most of my work's going to be done here, is I can do the same thing. So I can convert all of the blues to yellows, and I can convert all of the yellows to blues. Now what happens is this image and the image that I got from the by using adjustments invert are exactly the same. And so this is just another way to get to that space. The reason why I like working in the curves function is that I can now stay in this space and continue to do my post-processing. Now this image is rather flat, and it needs some contrast. It needs to have some color manipulation to make it look a little better. And so I can do that right here. And so I'm in the B channel. So what I can do is I can take the dark blues and I can make them darker. And I can take the light blues and I can make them lighter, or the midtones. Now, and the light blues can be lighter. And this gives me a more separation between the blues themselves. Now, the interesting thing that happens here is that if I take the midtones, this stack here, this spike, are the leaves. And so what I can do is I can actually crank this up a bit and put some yellow into the leaves, which I'm going to do. And so what you see here, the people who are used to using curves, is a contrast curve. A moderate contrast curve has been applied to your image. Now, if I go to the A channel, normally I don't have to mess with this much at all, but I want to demonstrate one other thing, is that, again, this is the leaf spike here, and what I can do is I can grab this and I can move it up, and I can add some magentas, or I can add some greens to the image just by doing this. So what this does, this helps me when I want to do some creative post-processing. But for this purpose here, I'm just going to leave it alone. The real key to using a lab color is that lightness, or luminance, and color are handled separately. And that helps you a lot because you don't end up with chroma, you don't end up with a lot of extra color noise and things like this. You just and so it ends up giving you a lot more control without as many penalties that you would have when you use the standard RGB space. So to increase the contrast, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the dark things and I'm going to make them darker. And the light things, so I want this peak here, I want it to be lighter, okay? And the midtones, which I want which are the leaves, I want them to be just a little bit darker. Okay. Now, normally what I would do is I would use this curves. I would have a layer down here that have to be flattened, but I'm not going to do that. So I can just say okay, and I'm done. Now, what you see here is an image that has a fair amount of contrast to it. It has good color gradation, and it was all done in one space. This is what it looked like after the channel swap. So if you did the invert function, you'd still have to go into the curves or some other method to be able to do this. But I did it all in one space. So that's the advantage to this. So I like this method a lot, and I recommend it for people that would really want to do work efficiently in lab color. Now, if you want to actually go beyond this and actually do the use Nik filters or other types of things, topaz and this sort of thing, what you have to do is you have to do mode and switch back to RGB. And once you do that, then your other functions will work fine. So with that, I'm going to stop, And I would encourage you to go to my website, www.one-candle.com. There you'll find program notes, you'll find written step-by-step instructions on what to do, and you'll find this image if you want to actually try this on your own using my how-tos. So I'm going to stop now, and I thank you very much for listening.